What's going on, everybody? My name is Sam. I'm going to be your instructor, and welcome to Religion 211. This is a course covering the Old Testament, what some people call the Hebrew Bible. For many of you, this is basically the first two-thirds or three-fourths of what you call the Bible. And the Old Testament is basically a collection of Hebrew writings, ancient Hebrew writings, that were put together over a period of about 1,000 years, depending on which scholars you read, basically from about 1200 to 1400 BC up until about 400 BC. It is ultimately a record, historical record, of the people of Israel. In addition to that, it is one of those, the Old Testament is one of those books that's not just a single book, it's a collection of books and includes several different genres. Obviously, there's narrative in there that kind of records the history of Israel. There are writings, what we would call songs or poetry, wisdom literature in there. In addition to that, you have prophetic oracles. You have law code that is included in the books of the Bible. So those are some of the different kinds of genre that you will encounter. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, before we move any further, real quick, I want to just talk to you about how the class is going to go. I'm talking about three things, and that is grading, attendance, and contact. First of all, grading is going to be broken down into three different categories. That is going to be your quizzes and your writing assignments. Your quizzes will basically be a series of questions, some, multiple choice, matching, essay, etc. That is going to test your knowledge of that week's material. You get to take those quizzes twice. Now, I average the grades, so don't just think you can take it once, get all the answers, and go back and take it again. Not only are the orders of the order of the questions changed, but if I average the grade, let's say you make a 20 and then you make 100 on the next one, you're still probably not going to pass. So try to do as well as you can on both attempts. The writing assignment is going to be based on some particular reading that you had for that week. And I will give you the specifications in the initial prompt and tell you how that needs to be formatted as well. So pay close attention to that. I don't want people writing in text format. I've had people that would write in, shorthand, use emojis, all those different kinds of things. Write this as close to an academic paper as possible. If you use other sources in your paper and you get information from websites and things like that, please include those sources. Tell me where you got that information. Next, you have forum discussions. Forums work like this. I will provide an initial prompt. You will respond to that prompt in that initial writing, which will be worth 80% of that grade. Then, after 3 or 4 days, you will respond to another student's prompt, initial prompt. In doing that, you need to make sure you interact with what they've written. Don't just kind of restate what you wrote in your prompt, but interact with what they've written. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Have you got further questions for them? That kind of stuff. And when you do that, that's worth 20% of your grade. All right. So make sure you do both parts. I've had some that would just kind of do the initial part and then not respond to anybody's prompt and end up making 70 something rather than probably 90 something. So kind of do both parts. Finally, you have the final exam. The final exam is worth about 10% of your grade. All right. So you have your quizzes and writings are worth the bulk of your grade, 50%. Forums are worth 40%. And the final exam, which will be basically taken from a lot of your quiz questions, maybe a forum or two in there, that's going to be worth 10% of your final grade. So keep that up. All right. With that being said, if you fall behind, contact me. Let me know if you got questions. Please don't hesitate to shoot me a message. Finally, where are we at? Attendance. Okay, attendance. As we go through this semester, this is an online course. You need to log in, I would say, at least 2 or 3 times a week. If I see that you're not logging in regularly, I'll try to contact you if you're missing assignments or something like that. But according to the James Brunt attendance policy, if you don't complete an assignment 2 weeks in a row, I should drop you. Now, I'll contact you before that happens and give you a chance to either catch up or let me know, if you want to stay in the course. But if you don't complete an assignment within, in 2 straight weeks, I'm supposed to drop you. If you have problems or you're going to be missing a week, let me know. Just shoot me a message and let me know that. One of the quickest way, and that leads finally to contact, one of the quickest ways to get a response from me online at least is through the Moodle Messenger. I don't do this full time, so I check my email maybe about 3 times a week. And so I may not get right back with you. But if you do it through Moodle Messenger, every time I log onto the course, I'll see that there's a message up there, and I can respond to that usually a little quicker than I can in an email. And you can always call me. If I don't answer, just leave a message. I'll try to call you back. So I think that's everything for class. Let me just finish this off by giving you kind of an outline of how the Old Testament, at least in our Bibles, is organized. First of all, the first 5 books is what's called the Torah or the Pentateuch, and this includes Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And it records the early history of the world and the early history mostly of the Israelites, beginning with specifically Abraham. And it ends with the second law or Deuteronomy. Okay? The next set of books is the historical books. That is everything from Joshua to Esther, and it records basically Israel's entrance into the Promised Land, the formation and the rise of the Israelite kingdom, especially under David and his son Solomon, the division of that kingdom, and their unfaithfulness towards God, and their ultimate captivity in Babylon. Then you have what is called the writings. The writings are a collection of books that include poetry, songs, wisdom literature. And, I think the most famous of these is probably the book of Psalms, but it starts with the book of Job, which wrestles with one of the most difficult questions in history, which is the question of suffering. Then you go to Psalms, which is basically the hymn book for the people of Israel. Then Proverbs, which is a collection of short, kind of pithy statements that give you some practical wisdom on life. Then you have Ecclesiastes, which is kind of written from the perspective of an old man looking back and saying what life is really all about. The accumulation of wealth and knowledge and all these different kinds of things are overrated, according to the writer of Ecclesiastes, which was probably Solomon. And really the ultimate task of man is to fear God, keep his commandments. And then finally you have the Song of Solomon, which is a love poem that is written from between Solomon and his bride. So that is a wrap-up basically of the writings. Now you have what's called the prophets. That's everything from the book of Isaiah up until Malachi, which is the last book of the Bible. The prophets basically, timeline-wise, most of them are included during the kingdom years of Israel, and they are, a record of prophetic oracles that were given to the people by different prophets, many named by the book, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, for example. And their attempt was to get people to come back to God through repentance. They were calling the people of God to turn from false gods, idols, and return to the Lord. That was the main thrust of most of their messages. There are some who would further divide this into the major and the minor prophets. Now, that has nothing to do with the importance of those prophetic books. It just has to do with the size. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, even Daniel are pretty lengthy, while you have, books like Jonah. I think Obadiah is only 1 chapter, that are not that long. And so they're called the minor prophets. And that kind of rounds out, when you get to Malachi, the Old Testament. Hope this helps. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me.